Take a good look at that clump of dead algae sitting on the reef. It doesn't move. It doesn't swim. It doesn't even look alive. If you were diving past it, you'd probably ignore it without a second thought. Most fish do the exact same thing. Then, in less time than your brain can even react, it's over. One small fish drifts a little too close, and suddenly, it disappears. No chase, no splash, no warning, just gone. If you blinked, you completely missed it. For a long time, scientists couldn't believe what they were seeing. How could something that looks slow, heavy, and almost lazy launch the fastest strike ever recorded in the animal kingdom? It doesn't have a powerful tail. It isn't built for speed. In fact, it barely swims at all. So, what's the secret? How can a creature that seems to have given up on movement become one of the ocean's most efficient predators? The answer isn't hidden in its muscles. It's hidden in millions of years of evolution. And once you see how this hunter really works, you'll never mistake it for a harmless lump on the reef again. Here's the strange part. This predator doesn't waste energy chasing anything. It doesn't need to. Instead, it waits. Completely still. So still that most fish don't even realize they're looking at a living animal. To them, it looks like nothing more than a piece of algae or an old chunk of coral sitting on the reef. But that's exactly what it wants. Then it reveals its real weapon. Right above its mouth is a tiny piece of its dorsal fin that's been transformed into something incredible. It works like a fishing rod. At the tip is a small lure that twitches back and forth, looking almost exactly like a struggling worm or a tiny shrimp. For a curious fish, it's an easy meal. For the predator, it's the perfect trap. The moment the prey moves close enough, everything changes. Its jaw drops open in an instant. Its mouth expands to an unbelievable size, growing many times larger than it looked just a split second before. But here's what makes this hunter different. It doesn't bite. It doesn't tear. It doesn't even chase. It creates a powerful vacuum. Water rushes into that suddenly expanded mouth so fast that the prey is pulled in before it has any chance to react. It's less like being eaten and more like being swallowed by the water itself. The whole attack is over almost before it begins. That's what makes this animal so fascinating. It doesn't win because it's stronger or faster than everything else. It wins because evolution gave it a completely different way to hunt. And once you understand that, you realize this strange-looking creature has been one step ahead of its prey all along. At first, it almost feels impossible. How can a fish that barely moves launch the fastest attack ever recorded? The answer isn't raw muscle, it's physics. Everything starts with the frogfish's oversized head. It looks awkward compared to the rest of its body, but that's exactly the point. Almost everything about this animal has been built around one job: creating an incredibly fast suction trap. The moment a fish enters range, the jaws snap open. But that's only part of what's happening. Inside, the mouth opens so fast that the entire mouth cavity suddenly expands. That expansion creates an instant drop in pressure. Think about opening a vacuum chamber in the middle of the ocean. Nature immediately tries to fill that empty space. Water rushes in at incredible speed, and the prey comes with it. The frogfish doesn't need to grab its victim with sharp teeth. It doesn't have to chase or wrestle anything. The water does the work for it. Every drop flowing into that low-pressure space pulls the prey deeper into its mouth before the fish even realizes it's in danger. That's why the strike looks almost unreal. One moment the prey is calmly swimming. The next moment, it's simply gone. Even more surprising, the frogfish isn't really biting at all. It's swallowing an entire pocket of water, and anything trapped inside becomes part of the meal. Its flexible mouth and expandable stomach make this strategy even more effective. It can swallow prey that's surprisingly close to its own size, something most predators could never do. When you look at it this way, the frogfish isn't winning because it's faster than other animals. It's winning because it lets the laws of physics hunt for it. Millions of years of evolution have turned a slow, strange-looking fish into a living suction trap, where pressure, timing, and precision matter far more than speed or strength. At this point, you might be wondering why a predator this effective looks so awkward. The answer is simple. It made a trade-off. Most fish are built to swim. They have streamlined bodies and a swim bladder, a gas-filled organ that helps them stay balanced in the water without using much energy. The frogfish gave that up. Over millions of years, it completely lost its swim bladder. That means it can't float like most fish. Instead, it sinks straight to the bottom. At first, that sounds like a huge disadvantage. But for an ambush hunter, floating is actually a problem. Even a small current could push it away from the perfect hiding spot. Staying locked to the seafloor gives it something much more valuable: stability. Of course, once it stopped floating, swimming became much harder. So evolution found another solution. Its fins slowly changed shape. Instead of acting like paddles, they became thick, sturdy limbs with flexible joints. They don't look like normal fish fins anymore. They work more like little legs. That's why the frogfish doesn't really swim across the reef. It walks slowly, one careful step at a time. It can even grip rough coral and rocky surfaces, helping it stay in place when the current gets stronger. Every movement is controlled. Every step saves energy. That may not sound impressive, but it fits this animal's lifestyle perfectly. The frogfish was never trying to become the fastest swimmer in the ocean. It didn't need to. It only needed to reach the next hiding place and wait for the right moment. When you look at it that way, its strange body suddenly makes perfect sense. What looks like a weakness is actually the result of millions of years of fine-tuning. It gave up speed, buoyancy, and graceful swimming to become something far more efficient: a predator that lets patience do most of the work. Sometimes evolution doesn't reward the fastest animal. It rewards the one that wastes the least energy and strikes only when success is almost guaranteed. Staying still isn't enough if everyone can see you. That's why the frogfish takes camouflage to a completely different level. When it settles into a new patch of coral or sponge, it doesn't just hide beside it. Over the next several weeks, its body slowly changes color until it almost becomes part of the background. Before long, it's nearly impossible to tell where the reef ends and the predator begins. Some species go even further. Hair-like spines start growing across their skin. They sway gently with the current, making the fish look almost exactly like a clump of drifting algae. Nothing about it says, "Danger." If anything, it looks like something every small fish has already ignored 100 times before. And that's exactly the mistake. Once the frogfish has blended into its surroundings, it brings out its most clever trick. That tiny fishing rod above its mouth starts moving. The flexible stalk twitches back and forth, while the little lure at the tip looks just like a struggling shrimp or a tiny worm trying to escape. To a hungry fish, it's an easy meal that's too tempting to pass up. Scientists also believe the lure may do more than fool the eyes. It could release chemical signals into the water, making nearby fish even more curious and drawing them closer to the trap. The closer they get, the better the odds for the frogfish. Of course, using a fake lure comes with a risk. Another predator could bite it off, but even that isn't the end of the story. If the lure is damaged, the frogfish can grow a new one and go right back to hunting. Everything about this animal is built around patience. It doesn't chase. It doesn't panic. It simply disappears into the reef, waits for curiosity to do the work, and lets the next victim make the final mistake. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator isn't the one you can see coming. It's the one you never realize was there in the first place. For all its incredible hunting skills, the frogfish isn't at the top of the food chain. Sooner or later, something bigger comes along. And when that happens, this slow-moving predator has to survive without speed. Its first move is surprisingly simple. It starts gulping huge amounts of water. Within seconds, its body swells into a large, round ball. What looked like a small fish suddenly becomes much bigger, wider, and covered with stiff spines. For many predators, that's enough to make swallowing it almost impossible. It's a clever defense. Instead of fighting back, the frogfish makes itself too big to eat. But sometimes, that's still not enough. If the attack doesn't stop, it has one more trick. The frogfish quickly fills its mouth with water again. This time, it doesn't swallow it. Instead, it squeezes the muscles around its mouth as hard as it can, forcing the water out through two small openings hidden behind its fins. That powerful stream shoots backward, and the frogfish shoots forward. It's basically using water like a tiny jet engine. The burst only lasts for a moment, and it doesn't carry the fish very far. But it doesn't have to. A quick jump of just a few inches is often enough to reach another patch of coral, disappear into the reef, and leave the predator searching in the wrong place. It's not a graceful escape. It looks clumsy, almost awkward, but that's what makes it so effective. Nobody expects a fish that barely swims to suddenly launch itself away with a burst of water. Once it's safely hidden again, the frogfish goes right back to doing what it does best: waiting. This animal never tries to outrun danger. It survives by using the same strategy over and over: stay calm, waste as little energy as possible, and make every move count. Sometimes that's all it takes to stay alive in one of the toughest environments on Earth. By now, it's easy to see why the frogfish is such an effective hunter. But there's one part of its life where all those hunting instincts become a serious problem: reproduction. When it's time to mate, the female suddenly leaves the safety of the reef and rises toward the surface. There, she releases a long ribbon of mucus filled with thousands of eggs, letting them drift through the water. The male has one job: stay close, fertilize the eggs as quickly as possible, and then leave. Immediately. There's no time to celebrate, no time to stick around, because once the eggs have been released, the female's hunting instincts don't simply disappear. If the male hesitates for even a moment, he can quickly become her next meal. It sounds brutal, but that's the reality of life for this species. The male survives by knowing exactly when to get in and exactly when to get out. It's another reminder that the frogfish is built for one thing above all else: hunting. That instinct doesn't switch off just because it's breeding season. As harsh as it seems, this strategy has worked for millions of years. Generation after generation, frogfish have continued to survive using the same careful balance between reproduction and survival. Out here, every stage of life comes with a risk. Finding food is dangerous. Escaping predators is dangerous. Even finding a mate can turn into a life or death decision. That's just how unforgiving life on the reef can be. After everything we've seen, it's easy to think the frogfish has figured out the perfect way to survive. It can disappear into the reef. It can fool its prey. It can avoid predators. For millions of years, that strategy worked. But today, it's facing a problem that none of its incredible adaptations were built to handle. The problem isn't another predator. It's the reef itself. As ocean temperatures continue to rise, coral reefs around the world are bleaching and dying. The colorful, living habitats that once protected the frogfish are slowly turning into pale, lifeless skeletons. And that changes everything. The frogfish's camouflage only works when there's something to blend into. Once the coral disappears, so does its best defense. Suddenly, the fish that was almost impossible to see becomes easy to spot. It can't simply swim away to a healthier reef. It was never built for that kind of life. It depends on staying hidden, staying still, and trusting its surroundings to protect it. Without healthy coral, those advantages disappear. A predator that once relied on patience now finds itself exposed to larger hunters with nowhere to hide. That's why frogfish populations are declining in many parts of the world. Today, they're mostly found in warm regions, where coral reefs and sponges still provide enough cover to survive. It's a reminder that even the most specialized predator has limits. You can evolve the perfect hunting strategy. You can survive for millions of years. But if the place you depend on slowly disappears, even the best adaptations may no longer be enough. Sometimes the greatest threat isn't another animal. It's the loss of the only home you've ever known. If you think the frogfish is just another strange-looking fish, there's one fact that completely changes the way you see it. This animal has been around for about 1.6 million years. Scientists have found fossils dating all the way back to the Eocene. That means, while the ancestors of modern elephants were only beginning to evolve on land, the frogfish was already walking across the ocean floor and hunting in almost the same way it does today. Just think about that for a second. Entire groups of animals have appeared, changed, and disappeared over millions of years. The frogfish stayed. That kind of survival doesn't happen by accident. It means its strategy worked so well that nature barely needed to change it. Most fish evolved to become faster swimmers. They developed sleek bodies built for speed and long-distance movement. The frogfish went in the opposite direction. It kept its round body. It gave up speed. It focused on one thing, becoming better at ambush hunting. That choice helped it survive while countless other species disappeared. When biologists describe the frogfish, they often point out how unusual its body is. It looks bulky, almost awkward, but every part of that design serves a purpose. A larger head means a bigger mouth. A bigger mouth means stronger suction, and stronger suction means a better chance of catching prey without wasting energy. Looking at the frogfish today is a little like looking into the distant past. You're not just seeing a fish, you're looking at a hunting strategy that has survived for more than 50 million years. In a world where environments constantly change and species come and go, that's an incredible achievement. Sometimes the oldest survivors aren't the fastest or the strongest. They're simply the ones that found a strategy that kept working, generation after generation. By now, it's pretty clear that the frogfish is unlike almost any other fish in the ocean, but some of its most incredible features are the ones most people never hear about. Take a closer look at its fins. At first, they just seem thick and awkward, but inside, the bones are arranged in a way that's surprisingly similar to a human wrist. Those flexible joints let the frogfish do something most fish can't. It can actually grip rough coral and hold itself in place instead of being pushed around by the current. For an animal that spends most of its life waiting, that kind of stability is a huge advantage. Then there's what happens after the prey disappears into that giant mouth. Most people think the hunt is over. It isn't. Hidden deep inside the frogfish's throat is another set of teeth called pharyngeal teeth. Once the prey passes the mouth, these teeth grab it again and keep pulling it farther inside. They work almost like a one-way conveyor belt. Once something reaches that point, there's no turning back. The prey doesn't escape. It can't. And then there's one number that really puts everything into perspective. Scientists estimate that the frogfish has a hunting success rate of up to gushable %. Think about that. Lions often fail most of their hunts. Great white sharks miss plenty of opportunities too. For many top predators, catching prey only a fraction of the time is completely normal. The frogfish plays a different game. It doesn't waste energy chasing animals that might get away. It waits until the odds are almost completely in its favor, and only then does it strike. That's why it succeeds so often. When you put all of these pieces together, the wrist-like fins, the hidden throat teeth, the incredible suction attack, and that remarkable success rate, you start to see the frogfish differently. It may not look powerful. It may not look impressive. But beneath that strange, grumpy face is one of the most specialized hunting machines evolution has ever produced. Sometimes nature's greatest predators aren't the ones that look the fiercest. They're the ones that almost nobody notices until it's already too late. When you step back and look at the whole story, the frogfish becomes more than just another strange animal living on a coral reef. It's proof that survival doesn't always belong to the fastest or the strongest. Sometimes it belongs to the species that knows exactly how to use its environment. For more than a million years, the frogfish has relied on healthy coral reefs to hunt, hide, and survive. Every part of its body evolved around that one habitat. Its camouflage, its patience, even the way it catches prey, only works because the reef is alive. Take the reef away, and everything begins to fall apart. That's what makes this story so important. Coral reefs aren't just beautiful places filled with colorful fish. They're entire ecosystems where thousands of species depend on one another. When those reefs disappear, it's not just one animal that suffers. An entire chain of life begins to break. The frogfish reminds us that even the most perfectly adapted predator can't survive without a healthy home. Maybe that's the biggest lesson here. Nature isn't just about powerful hunters or incredible survival skills. It's about balance. And once that balance is lost, even millions of years of evolution may not be enough to save the species that depend on it. The ocean is full of animals that seem impossible until you learn how they really live. And the frogfish is just one of them. If you enjoyed exploring this incredible hunter, make sure to subscribe to Predator Archives and join us as we uncover more of nature's most surprising predators and the science behind their survival. Leave a comment below and let us know what deep-sea creature should we explore next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next adventure.